The lunge is one of the most important movements to master if you want to work on being a more functional athlete, building single leg strength, or if you're trying to work through any lower body injury like some lower back pain, some hip pain, knee pain. Lunges will be great for you. When I start anyone off working on single leg strength, working through lunge progressions, I start them with the split squat. The split squat is the foundational version of the lunge because there's no forward, backward motion. You're in one spot with the legs, just going up and down. What that allows us to do is get really good at that motion, get really strong in that front to back stance. We can add different loads there, we can get stronger there, and we can play with some slight different variations before throwing in the dynamic version of a walking lunge, a reverse lunge, or a forward lunge. So when I'm looking to coach the split squat, the first thing I want to do is I want to get into that front to back stance. The width or the depth of that stance is going to look a little bit different for everybody, so just play with it until it feels comfortable for you. You may have tighter hips or tighter ankles, and that may look a little bit different. The most important thing that we're looking for is you need to be able to get your hips underneath you, as you can see here, and you need to be able to go straight up, straight down with as little bend as possible in the torso. So if your upper body should stay relatively still, all that's moving is your hips and everything below that. There's a lot of ways to load these and add some extra resistance, but I'll just show you a couple of my favorite here. So the easiest one is just going into a goblet hold, just holding the kettlebell or a dumbbell right out in front of your chest. Why I like this one most is because by having the weight just slightly in front of you, it allows you to keep that upright upper body much more easily because it acts as a counterweight. But once you've outgrown the just regular goblet split squat, where you maybe just ran out of weights in the gym, you don't have a heavy enough kettlebell or have enough dumbbell to hold out in front of you, you can go to a double dumbbell front squat, which is assuming you just have the weights on your shoulders here. You can do a kettlebell or a dumbbell, and that allows you to have the weights a little bit more out in front of you than maybe you will with a front rack or a back rack, so you can still get a really nice position and still load it up pretty heavy. Then you can go to the barbell movements, where you either have a barbell front rack or a barbell back rack, and that's going to allow you to load it a lot more. I prefer the front rack split squats over the back rack because, again, as we've talked about already, having that weight slightly in front of you in a front rack position is going to allow you to keep a much better position throughout the entire movement. Rear foot elevated split squat and the front foot elevated split squat. Both very different movements that feel very different. So first we'll go through the rear foot elevated split squat. This is what most people know as a Bulgarian split squat, and that's when you're in the normal split squat position and you elevate your back leg behind you. Most people will do these on like a bench or a high box in the gym, and what you'll see is they end up in a lot of lower back extension. They end up very extended, which the point of the rear foot elevated or the Bulgarian split squat is to put you into a little bit more hip extension so you can challenge that back leg a little bit more, get some more glute, get some more hamstring working on that back leg. But when you over elevate your leg, that's when you start to get into that more back extension, and you can put yourself at risk for injury, especially if you already have aggravated the lower back and that's something you're working through. Be very careful not to over elevate that back leg. I just like using two bumper plates stacked on top of each other, as I am in this video here. Just have your back foot on it, and you can go through the normal split squat range of motion here. So then on the contrast of that is the front foot elevated split squat. So that's the same concept, you're just going to be elevating your front foot instead. So the rear foot elevated split squat was focused on working more of the back leg, putting you into more hip extension. This is more so working on the front leg, putting your hip and your knee into more flexion. So this is great if you want to maybe work on being able to get deeper in your regular squats. Maybe you have some pinching in the hip when you're doing squats, or you just want to get more full range of motion. That front foot elevated squat is going to be great. Now both versions of that split squat are great. The front foot and the rear foot elevated split squats both serve their purpose, and I don't use more often or not than the other. It just depends on what the client needs or what I'm working on specifically when I'm using them for myself. So now we have the basics of the split squat down. We have a regular split squat, we have the rear foot elevated split squat, and the front foot elevated split squat. So now we can bring it into a more ballistic, a much more dynamic movement, which is the forward lunge and the reverse lunge, which is what you would see most of the time when you see lunges being done in the gym. That's when you're lunging forward and then coming back. Or you're doing walking lunges where you're continuously lunging forward. And then you have the opposite of that, which is your reverse lunges, lunging backwards, coming back, or just continuously doing walking reverse lunges. Now, these are great, but they serve a very different purpose than the regular split squats. So big picture, how does this all fit together and how would you actually put it in a training program? Imagine your training program is between like 8 to 16 weeks, which is what most programs should be. So between 2 to 4 months. What you need to do is, if you're focusing on strength, you need to pick one of the split squat variations. A regular split squat, loaded however you want to, or a front foot elevated or a rear foot elevated split squat, loaded however you want to. And then over the course of that program, progressively get a little bit heavier, add some sets, add some reps, just overall do more volume, do more work throughout the course of that program. And then once you finish that program, switch to another variation. If you're more so working on endurance, stamina, just general cardio, pick a forward lunge, reverse lunge, a walking reverse lunge, whatever version you want to pick, load it however you want, and progress the total amount of reps, the total amount of steps, however you want to count it, progress that over time. Best done by just adding a couple extra sets to your workout each week as you progress throughout the course of the program. So that's how I would do it. That's how I do lunges. That's how I coach lunges. Hopefully you can find a way to put those into your workout this week.